health or finance or relationships or spiritual crises, that when you face those, you are facing them alone, and it feels alone. You're not really, we're actually all in this together, but there, in those moments of separation, you feel really alone. So a big part of this faith also is what we're doing right now.
Wonderful. So we're live?
We are definitely live, and it's so lovely to be with you again, Holly. What a treat. I am so honored that you have asked me a second time. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I'm really excited to have you on again and to have this precious hour with you to talk about love and compassion and mastery and flow states. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Let me introduce who I am. I'm Holly Copeland. I'm a human potential coach, meditation coach, and I don't know, consciousness explorer, meditation enthusiast, interviewer. And I am trying to do these weekly HeartMind happy hour posts to interview, do interviews and have discussions around these kinds of topics that interest me so much. And I feel like today, especially with all the chaos that has arisen in the world over the coronavirus, this is an especially good time to talk about things related to stress and anxiety and fear. I see a lot of fear coming up, and ego, identification with the self, and how that is sort of pulling people into very strange places right now. So I think it's a wonderful time to talk about those things and the inner environment and what we can do to learn to come to a place of calm, clear thinking and presence. So I'm really excited to have Stephen on today to talk about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Stephen Altair is my guest today. He is a friend, my meditation teacher, an author, a healer, a mystic, so many things. I think I could go on and on, but I'm really honored to have him and his wisdom and experience to share with us today. So thank you.
I'm deeply honored too. It's always a blessing, truly. So I think the kinds of sentiments that you're expressing about what we're feeling is very much a collective sentiment. So I'm hoping that everybody here will relate both to the challenges that we're facing, but also the opportunities that it offers us. So yeah, thank you for this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for creating the opportunity to be with you. I'd like to actually start how Matt Belair starts with coming to a place of presence and heart and brain coherence. So let's take a couple deep breaths together in this space as before we open it up. All right. Well, thank you for that. So actually, I'd like to start with a little, I think this fits really well, a story from how my day started, and take it from there. So, so I have a beautiful trail behind my house that I run on every day with my dog, and do a lot of contemplating and pondering, and it's just a wonderful space and a wonderful place to start the day. And this morning, I was on my run, and so I was coming back. I encountered one of my neighbors, and he walks every day, so we often cross paths in our run. And so we crossed paths, and I stopped and said, hello, hello. And he said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm fantastic. And he looked at me like I was from Mars and was like, fantastic? Very quizzical. And I said, yeah, I'm doing great. And I said, how are you? And he explained that he and his wife felt like they were in a high risk category. So they were, I think, feeling vulnerable. I sensed that from him. His daughter-in-law worked at the hospital, so she was dealing pretty much on the front lines with some of the, angst at the hospital. And I just said, it's really about mindset, and you need to, stay positive and healthy, and, focus on focus on your mindset, and make sure you're sending positive messages to your body. And we had we listened. It was a good exchange, and I left. And as I was contemplating that interaction coming back, it occurred to me that, I have in my own practice for the last, the focus of my sort of journey in the last year has been really mastery over the internal environment, and not feeling so blown around by what was happening around me, but to come to a place of not having that determine my internal state. I mean, if I had to sort of boil down, one of the guiding things that I've been working on is exactly that. How do I master my internal environment so I am not at the whim of everything that happens around me? And it strikes me that that concept is really important right now, because we are all being just bombarded with the stress and chaos and anxiety. And it is so easy to slip into a place of letting that shape what's going on inside. So I think I will turn it over to you to respond and react, but that's what's on my mind today.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. And beautiful story. And I think we can all relate to it, that I'm sure those kinds of conversations are happening all over the planet at the moment. We go out, we meet somebody, and one of the first topics of conversations is about the coronavirus, or about health, or about fear or anxiety or concerns worldwide. And when we look at it, you could make an analogy that both individually and collectively, we're going into a cave, a little bit like Rey and Luke in Star Wars, and that we've gone into this cave. And when you first start to enter that cave, there's a great deal of anxiety that comes up. You don't know whether you have the capacity to deal with what's going to happen, and you also actually don't know what's going to happen. So a large part of this, and a large part of what's happening, if you look at it, is an individual anxiety. And anybody who's had anxiety will know that anxiety comes in, and as it enters, it starts to go round and round, and you keep this anxiety going day after day, and it accumulates, and of course your immune system suffers. So that's the basic thing, is you start to develop concern. You get a little health concern. You think, oh, is that coronavirus? Or, I've got a cough, or I've got a flu, or I've got what's happening to me? And I don't know, because there are these things that I do know that I've had, and I've dealt with them, but there's this whole big unknown that I don't know. Now, if you think of that individual anxiety that goes round and round and round in our heads over and over. So if anybody's been in that anxious situation where you're faced with a big fear, it doesn't go away. It kind of keeps coming back again and again and again. And if you look at what's happening collectively, we are collectively as a world, look what's happening in our world. That anxiety has gone around. It started in China, and it's gone around different countries. You could almost say that anxiety collectively has started to circle, and it's starting to go round and round, even to the point where some people are saying, oh, is there a second wave? Well, that's like that second wave of anxiety. So there is a matrix of anxiety that's hanging over each of us individually and also collectively. So how do we shatter it? How do we actually break that matrix apart? Now, if you look at a lot of the great masters who came on the planet, they often came at these times and they had to deal with quite significant issues, perhaps socially or collectively, where entire groups were against them and they stuck to their consciousness. So a really big part of the first way of dealing with anxiety is anchoring. Like, how can you take an intention and anchor it? So that's all about faith, really. Is do you have a deep faith in yourself? So if something really does happen, something, you know, and I'm sure for those of you like me who have been through some pretty big struggles in their life, whether that's health or finance or relationships or spiritual crises, that when you face those, you are facing them alone, and it feels alone. You're not really, we're actually all in this together, but there, in those moments of separation, you feel really alone. So a big part of this faith also is what we're doing right now, is reaching out, extending a hand of belonging, which is kind of ironic at the moment because most people are not really shaking hands, but we're doing it digitally at the moment. So I'm extending my hand to you and you're extending it to me. And we're feeling this interconnectedness, or this deep need for interconnectedness. So as a planet, we are being asked to break free of fear and limitation. And the very first part of that is faith and anchoring our intention. So what does it really mean if we want to manifest the life we dream and we suddenly find ourselves in a nightmare or a horror story, right? How do we break out of that in that moment? Because it's often, we are actually given a choice every single moment to break out of it. So if I ask you right now just to stop, if you actually can just stop for a brief second and let your mind cease its chatter, its narrative structure, its whole creation an idea and concept and belief in itself, actually, just for a moment, you are actually beginning to break free of the matrix, because you have to do that first. It's called shamatha, as the Buddha called it. Like, stop, just stop what you're doing. There is actually nothing that you have to do, because once we become part of pure consciousness and pure awareness, we begin to realize that to manifest the dreams that we really all want to be in this flow of life, we do have to stop. We've got to actually take a close look, both at ourselves individually and at this planet collectively. I mean, look at the things that we're doing. You know, this virus itself, and in fact, a number of viruses arise out of animal abuse and our lack of awareness around animals. And look at the kind of violence towards animals, towards women and children, towards our environment. So if you take that, that shows how disconnected we are from this interconnected consciousness that we're part of nature. We're part of, every woman and child and man is me, and every animal is me, and every plant and forest and tree, they are me. They are not separate from me. And until we waken up to that interconnected consciousness, we are not going to be able to manifest the lives as a collective that we dream of. So building consciousness, what's the first step? As I said, it's about anchoring that faith and making really clear choices. So, you know, when you look at, say, the path of the Buddha or the path of Christ or the path of great masters, they made particular choices in the present moment. So it's about choosing in the present moment to make a clear choice. And if you make that choice for love and compassion, for example, and positivity, then you bring a whole different awareness to life than you do when you make a choice for anxiety or fear. Now, this is part of the issue. I'm not going to blame the news at all, but I will say the less you watch the news, the better. If you're watching it every hour, then just watch it once in the day to catch up with the global gossip and global rhetoric, because you'll find it goes on much the same day after day, and quite often it gets worse. So does your consciousness need that? No, it doesn't. What you do need is you need to begin to put in the deep love and compassion for this planet and for the people and for the suffering of this planet. If you look at what the Buddha did and the Christ did, they really reached out to the joy of the entire universe. They were not just dealing with their own individual concerns, but they reached out with compassion, not just to the planet, but to the universe itself. So when we think in that way, if we think, actually, we become so isolated that all we're thinking about is ourselves and the toilet rolls on the shelves and whether we can actually get any food or whether we've got enough masks. And look, I'm here in Japan. So I am here, you could say, several weeks ahead of many of you folk who are in America and Europe and the UK. So I can tell you, it's okay so long as you have a very clear consciousness and you stick to your inner grounding and intention. And of course, you'd be safe. Do the things that the authorities are telling you. You know, wash your hands. Be careful about how you go about your daily business, and take the kind of cues that are healthy cues. Bolster your immune system. Do regular meditation. Pray for people. Send out your compassion and love, because goodness, this planet needs it. And maybe we are going to wake up to the kind of violence and abuse that we do to the groups that I was speaking about and to our planet. And maybe we will start to realize we have to make an extraordinary change. So the intention and bringing your consciousness to every moment is a really critical step in committing to the joy of the universe and committing to pure consciousness. Because when you do that, and like we did, like I said, stop. Something happens when you stop. Oh, there's a space for a moment. You know, when you're in anxiety, it curls around and around and kind of tightens its grip, and you can't stop to see the space. When you see the space, and if you think, oh, actually, instead of that moment of anxiety, I could, in every moment, breathe in that love and breathe out compassion to all those people who are feeling anxiety like me. Because just like me, in this precious human lifetime, we want to liberate. We want to let go of this fear. Who wants it? Do you want to have anxiety? No, I don't want it either, right? So we need to be putting into place in humanity, in the collective consciousness, the power of intention and the power of choice. That's what the newspapers and television should be talking about. Newsreaders should get on at the 6 o'clock news every night on the BBC or CNN or whatever you happen to watch, and they should say, let's take a moment to spread some compassion for people. Let's take a moment to stop all the anxiety that's been fueling your day. Let's share some love. I have yet to see that happen at 6 o'clock or 6:01. If they did it for 60 seconds, what a beautiful world we would have in the making. Because sure, it is important to know the facts. It's important not to kind of avoid them and say, well, okay, this isn't happening. Because there are lots of wonderful stories about, you know, about the Christ and the Buddha, about the times when they had to actually take action. Look at Jesus in the temple knocking over the, you know, he really did stand up and say, hey, this isn't working. The same with the Buddha. The Buddha had to tell people, you know, when to stop. He spread so many, or shared so many different paths of consciousness because he realized we have so many predispositions. So getting in touch with your intention and your choice and your faith in your path is so crucial at this time. I mean, what a wonderful opportunity to practice moment after moment after moment. So that brings me to, you know, the creative flow. So once we make an intention and a choice, how do we actually get in the flow of things? Because that's what it's really about, right? You don't want to just have a single moment where, okay, oh, I made a moment for compassion. But now I'm in 4,000 moments of anxiety again. Okay, time to stop. We want to be in the flow where actually compassion and positivity and that deep sense of faith in our path actually is a state of flow and immersion, right? So how do we do that? Now, some modern studies recently, as last year and the year before, some studies done in Japan, some studies done in Europe and other places around EEG and flow state. So if you're joining us and you're not really aware of EEG, that's when you measure your brain waves. And what they discovered in flow states and in looking at various participants in research is that flow states came about when people were in the following brainwaves. The most significant one was theta. So when there was theta all over the brain and a theta coherence, there was a flow state. There was actually, because they got the participants to speak about their inner experience and also measured their brainwaves. And they discovered, sure enough, that there was a flow state when they were in theta coherence. Now, what is theta all about? Theta is about accessing the deeper stuff in your life. So I'll talk just for a moment about these studies. So they discovered that along with theta, the following brainwaves also were really, so theta is all about that deeper immersion flow state, but also alpha with its very vivid imagery, and delta with its deep access to the unconscious. So really, when you go into delta waves, you are in a very deep state, quite often losing body awareness in meditation. So they discovered that both these brainwaves showed up alongside theta to help people access the subconscious. Now, why is accessing the subconscious so important, you might ask? Well, basically, when you access your subconscious, you start to bring up stuff that's been lying there for years. Now, if you want to look at let's look at our world. All this stuff, you know, the environmental collapse didn't just happen yesterday. You can look at what we've been doing for the past 50 years, and you can point to different countries and say, hello, you know, your consciousness has been putting this stuff out there. You've been littering, you've been creating pollution and waste of all sorts of different kinds, and you have not been responsible. And it's the same with, if you look at violent, you know, you mentioned Matt Belair, and he has spoken recently on his podcast about human trafficking. So you can say human trafficking did not just happen. Human trafficking is the result of a long history of abuse, of where people, they did not start off as human traffickers. They were human people with the opportunity for precious human lifetimes, like you and me and everybody listening. But something went wrong, and something happened in our society that has gone along to create that kind of abuse. And so we've got to wake up we've got to start working as a community and as a collective. And it all starts with your local community, with deep in local, the way that we work together. That's what, if you look at it, we are being actually locked down in communities. Now, that's a really important thing, because we are being asked to stretch out, reach out, help each other in our local communities by not hoarding, for example, not panic buying. Reach out to people in your neighborhood online. Start collectives where you spread kindness to people, and look after, especially because we know it affects the elderly, look after the elderly people. Make sure they're protected. Goodness, we've got all the means in our possession to do this because we are online. You know, so for example, I work with a large community in education. And people are saying, oh, what happens when the school's gone online? Well, isn't it a remarkable opportunity to learn about what happens when the school's gone online? Goodness, we're set up for it. So we've got all these powers as humanity, like online, and the ability to really look after our environment, and the ability to get rid of all this violence. I mean, I don't want to mention it too loudly, but I mean, gun laws and all the rest of it. What are we doing? Isn't it time to wake up to our intention? Because that's the thing. The intention started a long time ago. So it's not just something that's happening recently. So what does theta do? It allows us to get in touch with these wounds deep down. So if any of you out there have experienced anxiety, and you know what happens when you feel anxiety is it's not just the main issue that comes up. It's not just the virus, it's everything else. It's all the health concerns, it's your parents, it's your kids, it's on and on and on. It's the community, it's who's here. You know, you start to look suspiciously at a neighbor or a friend. You know, have they had corona? Oh, why are they coughing? Oh, who's sneezing today? And so on. You know, there are all these incredible anxieties that come up. So our deep subconscious wounds come up. But along with that, if you really access theta brainwaves, along with that comes insight. and spiritual awareness and a really deep understanding of what actually your path is all about. That's if you're prepared to face it. It's the same with this collective anxiety. If we're prepared to face it as a world, then we will actually open this collective wound. We will not just look at the coronavirus, but we will look at the virus in all aspects, all manner of consciousness of humanity. We will look at not just our physical health, but we will look at the mental health of our planet. And we will look at the way that we do treat our brothers and sisters and our mothers and fathers. And we will look at the way that we do treat our animals. They are just as much part of our family as my daughter and my wife. So we have got to get on that plane of thinking. And the trees in my garden and the flowers down the road are just as much my brothers and sisters as you are, because we've got to protect our environment. Why don't we see that this consciousness is living and awake just as we? That's how we wake up. We start to see the interconnectedness between all things. Now, a wonderful scientist, Anna Wise, in a book, Awakening the Mind, spoke about how to access and experience the depths of theta, which is what I'm going to lead us into. And accessing theta, like I mentioned before, I'm going to use you as a symbol, Holly. You're like Ray, right? So can I ask you, so let's just do a little role play here. So Ray, have you ever been into a cave of anxiety like I was describing?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. So, and it often when we think of that, and it brings up, you know, it's challenging because those caves, much like we saw in Star Wars, are actually places of real fear, and they exist. And that's what's happening to us as a collective. We are in a cave of collective fear. So what do we do? How do we go into that cave and face the fear? So an awakened mind is somebody who is in constant touch with their subconscious, conscious, and superconscious, as shown by the brainwaves in the brain and as shown by a coherent heart. So there's many parts of our body that are in play, but the body is a remarkable mechanism. It is designed to thrive and it is designed to heal if we know the way, if we actually really bolster it with power and intention and choice. But we have to do that. You look at any of the masters, so take the Buddha, they were able to choose every moment. Do you think it was difficult for them? Sure. And I've been watching the life of Buddha with my daughter, and she is absolutely awestruck by the fact that Buddha had to go through 6 years or whatever it was of all this incredible hardship while he was trying to find his path. So do masters struggle? Yes, they do. Why do you think they know about the human condition? Because they struggled, just like us. But they have an incredible power of concentration and absorption. So that's what happens with theta. You have to, number one, be prepared to go into the cave, which is interoception, basically going inwards. Number two, what do you have to do? You have to be prepared to open the door and have an intention. So you've got to say, all right, I'm actually okay about facing this. You've got to make it okay for the stuff to rise up. And that's what basically humanity at the moment unconsciously is doing, because nobody wants this virus, and I totally get that, but it's here and it's forcing us to face these collective fears. So this awakened mind is when your mind is in constant awareness of the present moment, you're really present, right? So again, let's stop. When you think of the space that happens when we stop, and then you extend it into your body, right? So feel your body for a moment. You might have woken up, or if you're at the end of the day, you might have gone through your whole day without actually ever feeling your body inside. What does it feel like? Have you got any pains? Have you got anything that's bothering you? Most of the time we let that anxiety and that pain and that suffering run completely uncontrolled and unaware. Okay, now extend your feeling outwards. Extend it into your room. Have you looked at your room today? Have you loved it? Have you actually seen and looked around it, seen what an incredible collection of consciousness, because it basically reflects you too. It's right here. Now extend it out into your neighborhood. Maybe you haven't seen your neighbors lately. They are part of your consciousness and your perspective and the way that you view things. How do you view your neighbors? Do you view them with compassion? Every morning I sit down and I pray and I send compassion to my family, and then I send compassion to my neighborhood. I actually go through them, all the ones I know, one by one, every single morning. And then I extend out to all the people I know, and I keep going. And it takes me time, but I'd rather spend my time doing that, because that really helps me to keep grounded in this deep intention I have, which is a commitment to the joy of this universe. And first of all, it's got to be the joy of yourself, then the joy of the planet, then the joy of the universe. But if you start on that path, it will work for you. So that theta gives you not just this revealing of the unconscious wounds in the cave, but it gives you creativity and insight. So coming back to you, Holly, when you went into your cave, so you don't need to describe what happened, but when you went into this cave and had this anxiety or fear or whatever it was, along with it, at some point, did some creativity or insight or spiritual awareness come?
In the particular cave I'm thinking about, it didn't come till later.
Right. So, and why? Yeah. Can you figure why it didn't come till later?
Because I was so absorbed in it at the moment that I didn't realize that the fear that I was feeling was self-created. I was blind to that. So in the moment, I was so connected to that fear that the fear and I were one, and there was no space. And it wasn't until in this particular situation, was the next day when I had, wasn't feeling so vulnerable anymore and I could create space, that I realized that all that fear was entirely self-created.
Right, right. And if you look at our world, the viruses that happen and the health problems in the environment and the violence is entirely self-created, and it comes from a really deep root. It hasn't just happened now. It is, you look back at 1918 and you look at the Spanish flu. Look, this has happened before. We are learning, but it is a really deep struggle to learn like this. Mm-hmm. And I would hope somehow that humanity will wake up out of it and say, just like you have, you said it happened later. So you wake up. Part of the thing is that, so if you look at brainwaves, for example, theta accesses that deep unconscious and alpha brightens it. But there's one other very important brainwave called beta that integrates the awareness without bringing the unconscious to the surface. So you actually, in your case, I imagine what happened is you brought the unconscious to the surface, but at that particular moment, you weren't aware enough to actually liberate that consciousness and be free of it. You were, but maybe you are now, and maybe you think, I could go back into that cave now and I could try it all over again and see if I'm aware enough. Now, I'll give you a short example of a lucid dream I had just a couple of nights ago. So I was up on the second floor of a building, and I decided to climb up on the railing. So I climbed up on the railing in my dream and I stood there. And as I stood there, I actually started to topple over. And at the moment I started to topple, I thought, hang on a minute. I actually thought in my dream, wait. So I did that shamatha. I wasn't truly at the Vipassana stage of total insight, but I was definitely at that, I could recognize, stop. So I stopped. And then I thought, I'm dreaming. I'm totally safe. No matter what I do, I can let go. And it was actually that moment you spoke about at the beginning, surrender, trust, letting go. Wow, those are such powerful things. Those are such powerful qualities that we often relate to, mothers, divine mothers, right? Because they're all about receptivity. Are we open to the flow when it comes in our life? So I actually knew in my dream, I thought, I'm in a dream. I'm dreaming. I can let go. So I slowly just let go over. And as I fell, I flew because I knew I could fly. And then I just practiced. I just practiced flying, and I practiced levitating, and all that sounds really cool. And yes, I've done lucid dreaming quite a few times. But the cool part was actually that moment where I knew, that moment of realization. is the key point. That moment of realization is the moment you wanted in your cave, because you wanted to have the moment, at the moment that the fear arises, you want to know how to deal with it. And that does take practice. And I'm going to give you a practice that you can use at any time, and you can reform it. And it was one that Anna Wise used, called the House of Doors. And I think it's a really wonderful one, because when you look at theta, so just to repeat for everybody, theta gets you in touch with the depth, right? And so does delta. But I'm going to use theta particularly because you can access it, especially through visual imagery. And then alpha will help you brighten your images. So when I'm going to talk to you in this meditation really about brightening and sensing, you're using that alpha imagery. And then beta, I'm going to get you to use insight at the beginning and the end of it to actually transform. Because no matter what wounds come up, if you have practiced often enough during your day, the intention that I can transform. This is my consciousness, right? The problem when you're in that cave of fear is you don't actually know it's your consciousness. Because if you did, you would say, but hang on, this is me. I'm the only one feeling fear. So stop, right? If you practice shamatha, that basic thing of let's stop this consciousness, let's stop this flow of anxiety. If you actually could practice that during the day, then when you faced it in your cave of fear, you would definitely be able to stop. You'd just say, stop. A bit like what I did with that in the dream, that, oh, stop. There's no problem. If I fall, I'm in a dream. I'm okay and I can fly. So that theta, alpha and beta is so important. And in theta, as well as these unresolved wounds, this unfinished business, which was possibly what you faced, was that in that cave, all this unfinished business came up, and it was probably, you know, a huge swamp of unfinished business. It's like, it's not just a little bit of anxiety, right? It's just a whole massive anxiety, and it's a whole massive fear, which if you look at us collectively in the planet, it is a whole massive fear that we are facing. Now, if we actually were putting out on the news the opposite kind of assistance, which is, you know, that the really big networks were starting to broadcast the power of compassion and the power of present moment presence and the power of deep faith in each other and in human beings, and do the practical stuff like washing your hands and look after the elderly and be careful. But look, isn't that common sense? Shouldn't we be doing that anyway? Shouldn't we really be looking after each other in that way? If we are really, really aware, then we will start to understand just how deeply we are capable of reaching out to people. I mean, so take the elderly, for example. How many elderly are there in old folks' homes that are lonely and that have been lonely for years and years? And now here they are facing a battle all on their own. Well, look, we could have done something about that a long time ago, but we didn't. What do we do to our elders? We leave them in old folks' homes. They are the wisest people on the planet. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's like, I mean, I just, it's, you know, we're talking about protecting our elders now. Goodness, we should have protected them long before this by giving them the privilege and place of wisdom in our society that they deserve. And we don't. You know, I feel so moved when I talk about this because we're missing the cues. The same with the animals. Why are we not doing more to protect our animals? We slaughter them and we sell them on open market. I mean, I'm just
don't get me started on that one.
do I even live on this? How did I come here? And how can I see all this abuse? You know, and the things that happen for kids and women. I just, you know, it's just so.
Okay, I do want to ask you one. Can I ask you one thing?
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about mastery, and we've talked about the importance of choosing in each moment that you have this choice, right? And you have to be aware, and it's waking up to that moment, being aware that you have a choice, setting that intention, and this faith that you talk about, which is really surrender, right? It's really surrendering and trust. which is so huge. And as you know, like another huge lesson for me last year was around surrender. I mean, and it will continue to be, I'm sure. I'm not done with surrender, I know, but.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful expression. I'm not done with surrender. I'm not done with surrender.
You're not done, are you sure?
Yeah, I want surrender. I love it.
So this great teacher of surrender. So I was thinking about this when I was thinking about our conversation. There's this, it feels a bit of a dichotomy. Like you're supposed to, it's essential to have surrender and trust, because you can't release your fear until you surrender and trust. Like those to me seem opposites or in opposition.
Right.
And so then the question is, what ground are we standing on? Where does that surrender come from? How can we fall and know that it will be okay?
Yeah.
How do we get to that place?
Right. Beautiful question. So one of the basic key components of surrender is not judging. When we judge ourselves, we are actually filling our minds up constantly with this idea that somehow we're not worthy, that somehow we're not in the flow, that somehow things are either better or worse or some other. If you look at it, we judge ourselves for better and we judge ourselves for worse. So constantly this narrative mind is chattering, giving us an opinion of ourselves constantly. So there is no space. So when you want to look at something like surrender, what does surrender really mean? Surrender is like, sorry, excuse me. Surrender is like when we truly open to the space of presence. And sometimes surrender is as simple as coming back to, as the Buddha spoke about in the Anapanasati Sutra, it's coming back to the breath, or coming back to a simple focus of attention that allows us to express kindness to ourselves. Because underneath surrender is actually kindness and non-judgment. When we are truly in a space of really deep kindness to ourselves and cherish ourselves and love ourselves, and when we are truly in a space where we're not judging ourselves, then suddenly we think, oh, well, what else is there to do? Like, I'm not judging myself. What does that mean? I'm neither good nor bad. What is there? And our mind can literally give up, which is actually what we want it to do. We want the narrative self to at some point give up its grasping, because it is holding on tight to this idea and concept that we have of ourselves. So being able to let go of the narrative self is a really important beginning, which is why meditation is so important. And can I say why any flow state like that is so important? What does meditation do? It allows us to practice letting go. What does music do, for example? You know, when you're in those beautiful moments, you're playing, do you play in an orchestra by chance? So what do you play, Holly?
I play the violin.
Okay, so look at the violin. You play the violin in an orchestra. There's a moment where you let go and you actually know the piece so well. It's like you know life so well that you're actually breathing and flowing with life, in this case with music. So take something else that's a flow state that we all know, love and love making, right? It's a very potent practice in humanity, yet we rarely talk about it. Why? I don't know why we don't, because it is a flow state. It's like music. It's like meditation. Same with dreaming, lucid dreaming. Now, interestingly enough,
and the research all shows that. I mean, they show the brain waves are in the same place.
That's it. For music, love making, meditation, lucid dreaming, they have the same brain waves. Hello, can somebody wake up and tell us what we need to be doing as human beings? Accessing flow states. How do we do that? Choice and intention. How do we get into a space of flow where we're actually making the right choices? We learn to surrender. How do we surrender? We stop judging ourselves. We start loving ourselves. It all does come back to love. When we really do love, and that starts with ourselves. I always love that whole biblical content of, you know, loving myself, loving my neighbor, loving this planet. It should start with loving myself, because without loving yourself, you can't really hope to love your neighbor to any really deep degree. So I always think that many of the churches are, you know, the religious context of the Bible has to start with loving and cherishing ourselves. And that's what's happening right now. Look at what's happening right at the moment. Churches and congregations all over the world can't meet. I mean, when I read that the Mormons couldn't meet, I thought, okay, we are close to something really huge here, because it is really major when congregations around the world that have deep faith can't meet. So what is it saying? It's saying you've got to start cherishing yourselves, and you've got to find other ways to reach out and meet. So surrender, that flow that comes from your intention. So you've got to intend to surrender. Yeah. You've got to make a choice again and again to let go of that anxiety and come into a state where you just say to yourself, okay, stop. I'm just going to stop for a moment right now, and I'm going to breathe. I'm going to breathe in love for a count of 4, the same breath that I keep saying, breathe in for a count of 4, breathe out an elongated breath to a count of 8. Now, the reason you do something like that is it actually interrupts a pattern you've got. Because you know, when you're in anxiety, and you might not notice it, your actual breathing is shallow, and you're constantly looking around for something. There's fear. The amygdala is like raising its hackles, and it's looking at your brain is on alert, because you don't want to go out to the grocery store when somebody else is 1 meter away from you coughing, because you've got this fear that something is going to connect and you're going to end up with a challenge. So instead of that, every time you get those thoughts, you need to start training your mind, which is what the Buddha was so brilliant at, is start training your mind to stop. If that's the only thing that you learn from listening to this, train your mind to stop and breathe, and go into a space where even if every 5 minutes during your day, because a lot of people are at home, working from home, thinking, what do I do? Okay, I'll turn on Netflix and I'll watch the next, oh, I've watched that already. Now what am I going to do? I'll watch The Good Place. Oh no, I've watched that 3 times. So, okay. So it's like the mind transfers its anxiety to just another channel. So you've got to stop and give it space, without media, without Netflix, without anything else, without chatter, just to be quiet and enjoy your presence and love the kindness that comes out of that space. And when you have that space, you do start thinking of others. You start thinking, oh, I wonder if my neighbor is okay. Oh, I wonder how my mom, I haven't spoken to my mom. How's she doing? And you start to reach out. So you reverse the process of anxiety, which is very insular and then looking with a lot of tension, and you start to reverse it, and you spread a beauty and health to your own body, and you start to spread that same beauty and health because you're activating it within to others. So surrendering, so again, you've got to intend to surrender, number one. You've got to make a choice, which means you've got to start practicing. If you really want to surrender, you've got to practice during your day. See, one thing we know from, for example, dream states, is that quite often whatever we experience during the day comes up in our dreams, right? This is called samsaric dreaming. It's because we actually haven't learned how to practice compassionate awareness during our day. So instead of that, we flood our dreams with the same stuff that we're flooding our minds with during the day, which is probably 60,000 thoughts of anxiety that we also had yesterday about the coronavirus. So instead of that, say stop to your mind. Just stop, pause, put in a thought of love and compassion, send that love and compassion out to somebody you really love, and just start there. And then you go from intention to surrender, a choice to surrender, because you're actually choosing it. You can't choose it and not act on it. Choice and action have to follow together. That is like karma. The reason we attract a lot of karma is because we have chosen unwisely. But if we choose wisely, you start to reverse karma. So it's really simple. Choice followed by action. Choice, action, choice, action. Then you start to look at those deeper acts of kindness to yourself first and to others, and not judging yourself. So when you do that, then you start to open to the space of surrender. And if you'd like, I mean, that's a great segue into this little exercise, which is all about surrendering. And it's called the House of Doors. It's a really great exercise to help you look a little bit more at what your consciousness is really doing. So if you'd like to do that, I can guide you into that now. And I promise your cave will be very safe.
That would be great. And I just, think to add to that, I work with my clients on, developing a meditation practice every day. And I just think everything you're speaking about talks to the benefits of, developing a daily meditation practice. I mean, I read a lot of books. For so many years, Eckhart Tolle, and just bookshelves full of be here now, be present books, for the last 20 years. And I have to say that it wasn't until I started meditating, at first 30 minutes and then an hour and, now it's more, but it wasn't until I started doing that and really giving my mind space to stop and practice stopping twice a day, every morning and every night, that it really, that what you're saying, I could practice it and make it actionable every day. I just think it speaks to the power of incorporating daily meditation practice for those who are listening.
I totally agree. That power of practice, the power of practicing meditation is such a gift. I mean, the Dalai Lama often speaks about the power of this precious human lifetime. And that's something I always say to people is we are given such power. You want to look to power and levitation and telepathy and psychic awareness. Well, we're given an even greater power, which is the power just to sit still and relax the body and relax the mind and relax the heart. And out of that comes your path, comes your innate spiritual awareness. And out of that can come your levitation, your psychic awareness, whatever else it is that you've been playing about in your consciousness. But guess what? That stuff is not important. If it's supposed to come to you, it will, but it comes out of this really deep spacious awareness beyond the narrative mind. Because when you think about it, the narrative mind is telling you this little story that you could write down in this really tiny notebook, and you could write it over and over again because you know what you're thinking about every day, and it's about this big. But the unknown mind, and so you're dealing with what, 1% of your mind's functions when you're constantly in your narrative self, and when you let go of that, you access the stars, you access the universe itself, 99% of which 99% of the time you are not accessing. So by really stopping and shifting the ears and getting that meditation practice innate and getting this practice of stopping and pausing throughout the day and changing our whole society in a way that thousands of years ago, there were some great people that came and told us how to do it. And we have yet to put this into daily practice. Sure, people go to church on Sundays and they go to the temple in New Year's and all that, but that is not what they were speaking about. They were speaking about the daily acts of compassion and kindness that we can bring to ourselves and others, and that we make our consciousness. To be in a flow state, they have to be our state. We have to be breathing and living that state. Otherwise, we haven't actually chosen it. We haven't made a really committed choice. So that's where, intention is so really, really important. If you intend to do it and you follow through, then you will start to realize just how encumbered and burdened you are by this narrative self and all its talk and anxiety, and how much that grasps onto your reality. I mean, it holds on tight. We all know when we're struggling with anxiety, how difficult it is to get out of it. And that's because we have set up ingrained habit patterns that have been grooving our brain like that. It didn't just start yesterday. It didn't just start when this whole virus thing began. It started a long time ago, and it only needed to be triggered in this way. Yeah. So,
well, and I think, it's so powerful what you're saying. And I mean, this message from the ancients that, hey, look, the narrative mind, this like, I got sick of my narrative mind. I mean, that's essentially what happened last January. It was like, I am sort of over this narrative mind. I'd like it to stop now. Thank you very much.
That is great. That is a great insight and a great intention.
Like, I'm over it. I'm tired of her. I'm bored and I'm tired of her. So now. And the brilliant thing was that there was like, you know, I said this on the interview with Cody. I mean, it was falling down a rabbit hole, but it's like the world that I fell into was so much more interesting and powerful and calm and so many insights than that narrative mind. So like if people can realize that, you know, you are not trapped in your narrative mind and there's a really beautiful world waiting for you when you escape it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is that 99% of the universe world. It is the world of the unknown. It is the world of you. You are that pure consciousness. You are that pure awareness. That is truly who you are. And in that flow state, so going back to music, for example, in that flow state, we all know how dear music is to us on this planet. How many people have got a favorite song that when you remember it, you even go back to the time that you heard it? What an incredible gift. What better example of a flow state, if you haven't meditated, than that? And guess what? You get absorbed in it, right? You listen to that piece of music and your heart goes right back to that moment you heard it, or your dad was singing it. Like my dad used to sing Oklahoma, and I can remember the moment. So as soon as I hear, oh, what a beautiful morning, I go straight back to that moment. And I'm right there. And I'm also there in my little boy self, listening to my dad. And my whole DNA structure vibrates with that memory. Like there have been research done on Carmelite nuns doing meditation where they were asked to remember a mystical experience. And sure enough, it lit up in our brains. We know from all the research that when we connect to those precious moments in our lives, often that they reinvigorate our whole immune system in the way they were designed to. Quite often that's the advantage of us connecting with our inner child like that, is because it wakens up those healing structures. And I mean healing with a big capital H, that real deep power of healing that is actually inborn. We are born with that power to heal. So we really have got all the opportunities and all the powers available to us. And they're right here. And we just have to stop, as you say, and develop a practice which helps us access that timeless, nameless, spacious awareness, that pure consciousness that actually allows us to heal individually and collectively. So, yeah, so I totally agree. All right, well, on that note, I'll take you and everybody that's listening into this practice called the House of Doors. Now, it's a little different than a conventional meditation. So it takes you both into a theta state, and it's going to take you into a variety of insights. So if you've got a pen or a piece of paper, you may want to have one handy so that you can actually note down something afterwards, because it's a really powerful one. I've done this with my daughter, who's 5, and I've done this with my wife and a lot of friends. I did it with groups of teenagers and groups of meditators, and everybody has the same reaction, and that is, oh, I never thought I'd see that, or I didn't know I saw myself like that. Okay, so here we go. So
okay, everybody ready?
Everybody ready? We'll put on our rocket, get in our rocket ships and fly to the outer reaches of the universe together. Here we go. So place your feet flat on the floor and place your hands cupped, right hand uppermost, thumbs joining. And your spine is gently elongated, and it's as if a string is pulling your head up to the ceiling. And close your eyes if you haven't done so already. So I want you gently to breathe, and we're just going to simply use that breathing technique that I said at the beginning, the love and compassion coherent breath. So as you breathe in love into your body and let it fill your cells, and pause on a count of 4. And then on a count of 8, so a really long, elongated breath. Breathe out compassion to somebody near and dear to you, perhaps your daughter, perhaps a pet, perhaps parents, perhaps the forest that you live near. It could be anything, anyone. Breathe in again. So we'll do this 3 times. Breathe in for a count of 4. Breathe in the love that you feel around you, perhaps from your daughter or from your pet or from your forest. And then breathe out a long, elongated breath of compassion out to your community. And then breathe in for a count of 4. Breathe in the love from your community. And this time, as you breathe out on that elongated, long breath, Breathe out to the world with its suffering, and watch the world transform. See your compassionate light transform every being. It's like every human's lit with the light of compassion. Instead of seeing them as human beings, you see them as light beings and compassionate beings. So this is the first step really in mindfulness, that you are seeing things with non-judgment. You're just seeing the world for what it is. So just rest in that and breathe deeply. Relax your body and still the mind. And take your energy and awareness to the lower dantian area, the area down in your belly. And just breathe there deeply. Breathe in. Count from 1 to 10 on the external breath, on the exhalation. So as you breathe in and you breathe out, 2. So just focus on counting. This brings you into a state of absorption and peace. As you breathe out, just keep the counting gently going in your lower dantian area. Each breath that you count takes you deeper and deeper into peace. Each breath fills you with peace and love and light. Just let go of the breath and let your breathing now be subtle and gentle and kind. It's as if every breath is a stroke of kindness to your heart. So you're going to now engage in visualizing and feeling an environment around you. You're going to imagine that you're walking in an environment like a forest or a beach or the mountains or beside a lake. You could be in an imaginary world, could be a world far from Earth, in another star system. Could be totally lit in the way that you want to light it with your imagination. And in this environment, you feel totally safe and at peace. And I want you to sense it, especially. Walk around in it. I want you to feel it, see it bright and colorful. So amplify the colors so that they're very vivid. And I want you to hear the sounds in this environment. And feel what it's like under your feet or breeze in your face. Or what you can smell. Or what you can sense. As you walk through this environment, you see ahead of you now a path. So just note what kind of path it is. It could be narrow or wide, it could be made of something beautiful, it could be made of something very natural and beautiful. And it's leading to a house. So don't go into the house, just observe it. It could be very palatial and grand, or it could be very simple. Just watch. In fact, you can walk around it if you want. You know there's a front door which you're going to enter shortly, but just look. Look at the texture of the house or the place, or whatever kind of dwelling it is. Note how large or small it is, whether it's humble or grand. Just note. Again, you're free of all judgments. Whatever arises for you is absolutely perfect. And now you're going to go up to the front door, and you're going to open the front door, and you're going to go in through the front door to a hallway, not a long hallway, just a hallway that you might find in a normal house. And at the end of the hallway, there is a door which you're going to open, and you're going to go through into a room of mirrors. And as you enter that room of mirrors and you look around, you see yourself. So I want you to note particularly, what are you wearing? What do you feel like? How do you see yourself? How do you feel? What can you hear? What do you see in those mirrors? What do you see reflected back to yourself? Then you keep going through the mirrors, room of mirrors, and you go through, and you come to another door which you open, and this time when you open it, you're looking down a long, long hallway. And there's a row of doors on the left-hand side and a row of doors on the right-hand side. These doors appear to go on forever, but you're going to go down the left-hand side first. And you're going to choose a door, but you're not going to open it just yet. You're going to stand outside and you're going to look at the color, because it has a color. And I want you to look at the image or symbol that's on the door. And when you've noted those down, I want you to open the door and go into this room. The room could be small or large. It could be vast as the universe itself, or it could be tiny. And inside this room is a series of objects and an environment. It could be natural. It could be something that you know that's very familiar. It could be something quite imaginary. It could be something quite otherworldly and beyond what you might be able to hear on, see and feel on earth. Whatever it is, this room is beautiful and safe for you. And I want you to very carefully look at the room, interact with the environment, and you can transform it in any way. So take some time to see, hear, feel, touch, and taste what's in the room, and transform it in a way that truly reflects you and your inner innate awareness. Now you're going to take time and thank the room, thank the environment, thank the space of your consciousness and awareness. And you're going to come out of that room and you're going to go out into the hallway again. And this time you're going to look for a door down on the right. And you're going to select the door and you're going to stand outside before you go in and note the color of the door and the shape or symbol or image that's on the door. So make a note of it, be aware of it. And then open the door and go inside. And you'll find a different environment. You're going to find an environment completely conducive to another aspect of your awareness and consciousness. And again, you can transform anything that you want in this environment, and it's perfectly safe for you. So take some time to interact and see, hear, and feel, and touch and taste, and interact with this environment as you wish, and transform it, if appropriate, in any way you wish. Now, express gratitude for this room, for this space of your consciousness, for this space of your awareness. And come out of the door, come back down the hallway to the end of the hallway you'd entered from. Open the door and you're going to go in to the room of mirrors again. So when you reach the room of mirrors, I want you to look at yourself again. Note very carefully, have you transformed in any way? What is happening to your awareness now? What aspect of consciousness is flowing through you? Note how you look, what you're wearing. Note how you feel, what you see. What do you hear or touch, taste? What do you smell? And then proceed through the room of mirrors. And again, express gratitude and thanks for the kindness within you. It's allowing you to express your consciousness like this and see yourself in a different light. And see perhaps your intention and your choice. And see the way that you're able to surrender and let go. So you emerge from outside the house now, passing through the front door, out into the environment you first came into. Perhaps that's changed too, or perhaps it's the same. You make your way down the path. And as I count, each count will slowly bring you back to a level of conscious awareness. 10. So become aware of the space within you and all around you. 9. Become aware of how vast your consciousness is. Extend it out, not just with kindness to the body, but with kindness to the space you're sitting in. 8. Your eyes start to open just a crack at a time, like they're gazing at a new dawn, and you keep this conscious awareness and intention, this focused absorption, this theta state of being, this coherence in your brain. 7. A little wider now. 6. Let your eyes open nearly fully. Be aware of the vast reach of your consciousness, not just within you and all around you, but far, extending out into the planet itself to touch all living creatures, all living beings. 5. 4. Your eyes open nearly fully now. You keep the same stillness and awareness, the same surrender to the stillness, the same absorption, the same deep focus. And you can sense your consciousness now touching beyond the earth, out into the planets and solar system, out into the stars and galaxies beyond this one, out into realms and dimensions beyond ours. 3, 2, 1. And you're awake. So thank you deeply for the opportunity to share. Take a moment now, if you wish, to write down anything that came to mind, anything that you saw, anything you experienced, any insights you had, any moments that gave you greater understanding of the pure consciousness that you are, any moments that gave you insight into the deeper I am, or the deeper I. Ask yourself, how do you feel? And if you could say how you felt in one word or with a symbol or image, what would that be? So Holly, if to finish up, if you want to share anything, please do. And if you want to keep it all private at the moment, I totally understand that too. But I'm always very grateful for this. And yeah, I've done this a number of times, and I find it always very transformative because it's very simple, but it actually helps when it's all about when you reach that really deep state of stillness, and you can access theta consciousness, especially a coherence where you open to, you are surrendering to whatever it is. You're not making any judgments. You're just allowing the kindness of your heart and mind to express itself through yourself.
Yeah. That was really beautiful. That was journey. That was so rich and yummy. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, it does have a taste to it, right? It has a particular taste that you think, oh,
yep.
Oh,
okay. Well, can we do that for 4 hours?
well, that's it, right? When you start to experience this and you think, I really want more of this, then I do wonder why our education and our news and our governments, the first point of communicating with anybody should be on this note of love and kindness, and on this note of compassion, and on this note of touching our deeper innate spiritual awareness, because we're ready for it. We've been waiting long enough. That's why we've incarnated here at this time. We all want to make a change, and everybody who's listening to it knows this. We all want to make a change. We want to live in peace and harmony and happiness.
Yeah. Well, I'll share a little just for fun. So my inner Jedi Ray came out when I was in the House of Mirrors. That's what I saw.
Oh, that's real nice. That's wonderful.
Yeah, she was there. And the door for me on the left was a green door, a very vibrant green door, like jade green with a Star of David on it, actually. And when I went inside, it was like an alchemy room with tools for transformation.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Of all, crystals and books and, maybe a sword, a lightsaber, sword. They were just, it was like tools for change. That's what I saw. It was very cool.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. And the right door was a blue door with a lotus on it. And it was the room of music. I saw music, and it was most beautiful, like harp music or something was playing. And there was water, and there was starlight coming through little pinholes in the ceiling. Yeah, it was flowing and creative and inspiring.
Beautiful, doubly beautiful. Oh, that's wonderful to hear that. And what happened on the way back out?
Just looked at myself and just felt like, yeah, this feels right.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you, truly. That was really wonderful.
Thank you for guiding it.
Ah, magical alchemy. I think your room summed it up. So alchemy is, in its real meaning, is all about unity and unity consciousness and interconnectedness and union, like tantra, like yoga. All those words mean the same thing. They're about us joining together, belonging, reaching out, feeling part and connected with one another, and feeling interconnected with everything.
Yeah. So, and what a perfect message to end on, because I think, that is, if we see this, what's happening on the planet right now, and the chaos in what we can create from it, we can create from this unity and see our interconnectedness and, come into a much stronger place because of that. So
I totally agree. Beautifully said.
yeah, God knows the old way wasn't working.
That's right. That's right. We've woken up to that part. The old way was not working.
Mhm.
Now it's time to create the intention and make a different choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, what I hear from you in this conversation just reinforces, you know, trusting and surrender and being very clear by being able to stop, you know, and make a conscious choice in each moment for right action, for how we're going to act. And we do that by starting to go within and get really quiet, and so that we can hear and access that place, and so we can witness what's happening, witness the fear, witness something arising, and choose whether we react or not to that and how we react.
That's it. The choice is ours. That's so true.
Yeah. So
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share with you, because it
thank
really
you.
is us sharing. It's like a unity consciousness. You know, it's you and I sharing, and everybody else as well. This is something we all feel. I'm just expressing words that you're also expressing, and everybody else listening is also expressing right at this time, because we all want to wake up. We want our world to wake up too, because we love it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you to everybody who's watched and who's joined us. Thank you so much, Stephen, for being here and being into this space, and your wonderful insights are really appreciated.
My great pleasure. Thank you. And love and compassion and blessings to everybody.
Love and compassion and blessings to everyone. Thank you.